everyone, so we'll be looking at directed numbers today, and in particular this time multiplication and division. So we'll start off with multiplication and look at the rules that we will be needing in order to solve those questions. Okay, so rule number one, or the first two rules, are linked to when the signs are the same. Okay, so for example, we've got a positive times by a positive, okay, your answer will be positive as well. Okay, that's just the normal case scenario. And then if we move over to rule number two, okay, is where we've got the other scenario where the signs are the same. It is negative times by a negative, okay, then you will get your answer to be a positive again, because your signs are the same. Okay, and then we'll look at the next two scenarios, which is when the signs are different. Okay, so the third rule is when the signs are different. Now this could be when you've got a negative first, you're multiplying by a positive, then your answer, because the signs are different, will be a negative. Okay, and then lastly, it's just the other way round. So you're starting off with a positive number, multiplying by a negative, and then your answer is again a negative answer because your signs are different. Okay, and I'll take a look at some examples. Okay, so the first example that we'll be looking at is when our signs are, let's say, the same. Okay, so if we've got two negatives like -3 times by -6, well, what do we get? The first thing to look at is, even if you don't remember the rules, okay, if you've not got them in front of you in an exam, is just to do your normal 3 times by your normal 6, okay, and just hide the signs for yourself. Just think of it as a normal multiplication question. So I know 3 times by 6 is 18, okay, and now we can look at the signs. So I've got two signs and they're both the same, they're both negatives. So hopefully if we've memorized our rules, okay, if your signs are the same, your answer should remain a positive. Okay, so we don't have to do anything to that, we can leave it as positive 18. And then next example is when our signs are different. Okay, so if I've got positive 3 times by -8, again I will just ignore my minus sign, okay, and just be focusing on my 3 times 8, which I know is 24. And then again, if I don't know what my rules are, I'll think about, okay, I've got two different signs, positive times by a negative. Well, if they're different, then the sign in your answer should be a negative as well. Okay, so it should be a -24, like that. And then lastly, we'll take a look at when again the signs are different, but we start off with a negative. So -6 times by +4. Okay, and then the answer again, we'll just be looking at hiding our negative. I'm just doing 6 times by 4, which is 24. And then thinking about, okay, I've got two different signs, so my answer should still be a negative again because my signs are different. Okay, the order in which your signs appear in the question doesn't really matter. I've started with a negative here, and then I've got a positive, whereas in the previous one I started with a positive, then I had a negative. But because they're different, I would still get a negative answer. Okay, so that's multiplication with directed numbers. And now we'll take a look at division with directed numbers. Okay, so now we'll look at division and we'll look at the rules first in order to understand them before we apply it to the examples. So rule number one is quite similar to our multiplication rules. So rule number one is if we've got a positive number, we're dividing it by another positive number, okay, then our answer, which is the normal case scenario, should be a positive as well. Okay, so that's just our normal division. Then the second scenario is if we've got a negative number and we're dividing by another negative number, so same signs, okay? And like we looked at with multiplication, the answer should be a positive as well, okay? And then if we take a look at our last two rules, which is when our signs will be different, okay? So that means that I might start off with a positive and I'm dividing by a negative. Then my answer should be a negative because my signs are different, okay? Similarly, if I started off with a negative number, divided it by a positive number, then my answer again should be a negative because I've got different signs, okay? And now we'll take a look at applying these rules to some examples. So example 1, we'll take a look at when we've got two of the same signs, so negative 24 divided by negative 6, okay? And like I mentioned in the multiplication examples, if we just kind of ignore our negative signs, okay, and just take a look at our numbers, and that can help us to make a start, okay? So 24 divided by 6, we know should give us a positive 4, okay? And now we can be taking a look at the signs, okay? So I know I've got two of the same sign numbers, negatives. Therefore, because the signs are the same, my answer should remain a positive, okay? So I'll just leave it as positive 4. Then the next example I want us to have a look at is you've got different signs. So positive 72, you're dividing it by negative 9, okay? Well, in this case, my signs, again, I'm going to try and ignore them. So I'm going to ignore my negative in front of the 9, okay? And just do 72 divided by 9, which I know should be giving us an 8, okay? And then I can look at the signs. Well, my signs are different. I've got a positive first divided by a negative. And remember, the order in which your signs appear in the question doesn't really matter. Because, you know, you're dividing them, so it doesn't really matter in which order you're doing, the signs appear. So I've got a positive divided by a negative, different signs, so my answer should be a negative 8, okay, because my signs are different. Now, lastly, we'll take a look at negative 4, so the negatives at the front this time, divided by positive 4, okay, which should be giving us, if we ignore the signs, it should just be giving us a positive 1. But now if I look at my signs, so I've got a negative divided by a positive. Well, two different signs, so my answer should be a negative as well, okay? So that brings us to the end of our directed numbers topic, which involved multiplication and division. And we already covered addition and subtraction as well, which you can check out on my channel at The Traditional Tutor. Okay, if you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments. If this video helped you in any sort of way, please don't forget to like, share it with your friends and family, and also subscribe for more videos. Thank you for watching.